ਇਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦਿ ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸਚ ਜੁਗਾਦਿ ਸਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਇਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦਿ ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸਚ ਜੁਗਾਦਿ ਸਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਇਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦਿ ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸਚ ਜੁਗਾਦਿ ਸਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਇਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦਿ ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸਚ ਜੁਗਾਦਿ ਸਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਇਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦਿ ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸਚ ਜੁਗਾਦਿ ਸਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਕਰਮ ਨ ਜਾਨਾ ਨਾਹਿਨ ਨਿਰਮਲ ਕਰਨੀ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਕੈ ਅੰਚਲ ਲਾਭਹੁ ਬਿਖਮ ਨਦੀ ਜਾਇ ਤਰਣੀ ਗਿਆਨ ਧਿਆਨ ਕਿਛ ਕਰਮ ਨ ਜਾਣਾ ਸਾਰ ਨ ਜਾਣਾ ਤੇਰੀ ਸਭ ਤੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਨਾਨਕ ਜਿਨ ਕਲ ਰਾਖੀ ਮੇਰੀ ਤੇਰੇ ਜੋਰ ਮੈਂ ਗੂੰਗਾ ਕਹਤਾ ਹੂੰ ਤੇਰਾ ਸਦਕਾ ਤੇਰੀ ਸ਼ਰਨ
ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਪਾਤਾਲਾ ਪਾਤਾਲ ਲਖ ਆਗਾਸਾ ਆਗਾਸ ਓੜਕ ਓੜਕ ਭਾਰ ਥਕੇ ਵੇਦ ਕਹਿਣ ਇਕ ਬਾਤ ਸਹਸ 18 ਕਹਿਣ ਕਤੇਬਾ ਅਸਲੂ ਇਕ ਧਾਤ ਲੇਖਾ ਹੋਏ ਤਾਂ ਲਿਖੀਐ ਲਿਖੈ ਹੋਏ ਵਿਨਾਸ਼ ਨਾਨਕ ਵੱਡਾ ਆਖੀਐ ਆਪੇ ਜਾਣੈ ਆਪ ਪਾਤਾਲਾ ਪਾਤਾਲ ਲਖ ਆਗਾਸਾ ਆਗਾਸ
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਧੰਨ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਪਤਿਤ ਪਾਵਨ ਭਗਤ ਵਛਲ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਦੇ ਖਜ਼ਾਨੇ ਜੋਤ ਰੂਪ ਧੰਨ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ We're blessed again to be gathered here today to continue learning and developing spiritually on the path to attain oneness with the true Lord God, Akal Purkh Vaheguru. In our journey through the 8.4 million lives, we have reached the human form, and from this form we have the opportunity to gain that oneness. Through Sri Japji Sahib, which gives us a Brahm Gyan, the true knowledge of Brahma Vaheguru, we can attain that oneness. Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji is continuing his discussion with the Siddhs. We have reached the 22nd Pauri, and the Siddhs ask about the netherworlds. They asked Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji to expand and explain about the netherworlds. The netherworlds, different realms, different worlds, part of God's creation. In some faiths, they say there are 3 worlds, Tin Lok, 3 netherworlds. It's the Hindu faith that describes the worlds in that way. Some faiths, like the Islamic faith, as the Prophet Muhammad explained, that there are 14 netherworlds, 14 realms that God has created. And the Siddhs asked Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji, what do you say about these realms, these netherworlds? How many are they? And Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji continues his discussion by answering that very question.
Satnam Sri Vaheguru Sahib Ji Patala Patal Lakh Agasa Agas.
Patal. Patal can be described, can be translated into meaning the netherworld or layers of the world. So if the world we live on, the earth, different layers it can be, but in this case they're asking about netherworlds. Now what does netherworld mean? It can be translated, it can mean different realms, different actually worlds that are created in this creation, in the many universes. And Akas means the sky. And they asked about the skies as well. So skies obviously go with a world. So we have the world, we live in this world, and then there's a sky above it. So how many different skies are there? Obviously, space is probably one where all these planets fit into. But as we see, the sky or the atmosphere around this world, and how many different skies or atmospheres are there? Because depending on the amount of worlds, surely they would have that many atmospheres. So the question is joined, is interlinked. But at the same time, Patal means netherworlds. So different realms within creation. Realms that necessarily we can't see or we can't approach. And they may exist on other planets, but we haven't reached those planets, so we don't understand those. And in the Hindu faith, in a lot of their scriptures, they talk about Tenalok, or 3 worlds, 3 realms, 3 netherworlds. And in the Islamic faith, the Prophet Muhammad has preached that there are 14 of these. And the Siddhs asked Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji. And Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji replied, Patala Patala Lakh. Lakh meaning 100,000 if you take it in a singular form, but in this sense, there are hundreds and thousands of Patals, of netherworlds, of realms, of planets. So hundreds of thousands, that generally means there are beyond, there is no end, there are countless amounts. And then at the same time, Agasa Agas. So the Akash, which means the skies, because the skies go with these, there are hundreds and thousands of these skies in the creation. And again, hundreds and thousands, meaning there is no end to these, there are countless amounts. So the Siddhs questioned, how can there be this many? Because just like I've explained, and when they asked the question, they said, well, different religions say there are different amounts. How can you say they are infinite? And Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji, not disrespecting those preachers, those prophets, those teachers, those spiritual guides, Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji explained that you can only count what you have seen. So in the past, many years ago, when they used to think the end of the world, you could drop off the end of the world because they didn't know it was spherical. Nobody had ventured around the world to understand that it was spherical, so you could only say or describe as far as you could go. And then Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib said, these prophets, these teachers, if that is how many they have seen, then obviously they're going to think that's how many there are. But the Creator, the true Lord God, Vaheguru, has created an infinite amount in His creation. And there is a famous Sakhi. When Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji went to Baghdad, now in Iraq, and they went with Bhai Mardana Ji and Bhai Gurdas Ji, the scribe, when Tan Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji was first prepared, when Tan Sri Guru Arjan Dev Sahib Ji in Sri Amritsar Sahib, at Ramsar Sahib Gurudwara, when the Pehla Prakash, at that point, when the first time Tan Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji came and was Prakash. Bhai Gurdas Ji talks about that in his works, in his Vaz, about that time when Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji went to Baghdad with Bhai Mardana Ji. And when they went there, they settled just outside of Baghdad and they spent the night there. In the morning, in the ambrosial hours at Amrita Villa, they arose, they did their Shanan, and Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji started reciting Sri Japji Sahib, the Bani which we are trying to learn about. And obviously, as they arose and they started reciting, not loudly, just at normal speech, the people around that were living, they started to arise because they would wake up at those hours. And the people in those places in Baghdad at the time were generally Muslims. They believed in the Islamic faith, and they would arise to do their prayers. And as one Muslim rose, he heard this Bani, this special Bani, this Amrita Rupa Bani of Sri Japji Sahib. And he started listening. And he linked into this Bani because it was and is Amritamay Bani, Turki Bani. It's come from Akal Purkh Vaheguru. And he was connected. And as Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji recited Sri Japji Sahib, they reached this pori, Patala Patal Lakh Agasa Agas. And he could understand what was being said. And when he heard this Pankti, he got a question in his mind, because he was a Muslim, and Muslims are taught in the Quran through the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad that there are 14 netherworlds. And when he heard this Pankti, a question came in his mind. What is this teaching? Because he linked to teachings that went before this. But here, he got what they call a shanka. He got a question. He questioned Sri Japji Sahib. He questioned Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji in his mind, thinking this must be false. Because the Prophet Muhammad has taught us one thing, and this is saying there are infinite. There are hundreds and thousands of worlds and skies. And as Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji completed Sri Japji Sahib and completed the Nitnem part they would do at the time, they started singing Kirtan. And Bhai Mardana Ji started playing the Rabab, the special instrument that came from Sachkhand, that Bhai Mardana Ji used to play, and Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji, when Gurbani used to come, would recite and sing the Shabads in Kirtan form. And in the Islamic faith, singing to music is banned. The Prophet Muhammad has said that if you sing rag or if you play musical instruments, it's the devil's work. So it's banned in Islam. And so this Muslim who was listening in, when he heard this kirtan, when he heard the music of the rag, he got a little bit angered. And he believed, or he went to his spiritual teacher. And his spiritual teacher was called Dastagir Peer. And Peer meaning spiritual teacher. And Dastagir Peer was the spiritual teacher in Baghdad. And it was a lineage of spiritual teachers. And in that lineage, whoever became the next spiritual teacher, they would be called Dastagir. And he was the 27th one of these Dastagir Peers. these spiritual teachers named Dastagir. And he went to his spiritual teacher and he explained that spiritual person came yesterday evening. They spent the night, and when they woke, they started reciting their prayers. And the prayers seemed interesting. I got connected. But at a point, they read a line which said, Patala Patal Lak Agasa Agas, which contradicts the teachings of the Quran. And then, after they completed their prayers, they started singing. They started singing hymns to music in Rag, which has been banned by the Prophet Muhammad and the teachings of the Quran. That's it's devil's work. At that point, Dastagir Pir, the spiritual teacher of Baghdad, became very angered, and he collected the rest of his followers after they had prayed. And they went to find and seek out Dhan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji. And he was so angered, he said, like in many laws, which I'm not going to necessarily delve into at this point, for breaking some of the laws of Islam, you can be stoned, and sometimes you're stoned to death. And Dastagir Pir commanded his followers to pick up stones, and we're going to stone Dhan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji and his companion Bhai Mardana Ji to death with stones. We're going to stone him and his companion to death. And they picked up stones and they went towards where Dhan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji was continuing his kirtan. And as they got there, Dastagir Pir watched and he sent his followers forward. He sent his followers forward and they had bricks and stones in their hands, ready to throw. They lifted their arms, ready to throw them at Dhan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji and Bhai Mardana Ji. And at that point, Dhan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji shouted out or spoke out, Sat Sri Akal, Gurbar Akal. And what happened when they said that? The Jakara of the Sikhs. It was like those followers turned to stone. And Bhai Gurdas Ji describes in their works, Son Mon Nagari Pai. In other words, son, that they got stuck, they became like stone. Wherever their hands were ready to throw, they were stuck in that position. Mon meaning quiet. As they were shouting and at Dhan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib, you can imagine coming down, everything went quiet. And the Pir became Haran. He looked in astonishment, thinking what's happened. And he tried to use his spiritual powers to break them from this going like stone. And his spiritual powers, his kalams, his prayers didn't work. And he realized that Dhan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji was completely spiritual. They must have been very, very close. In fact, they are the embodiment of Akal Purkh Vaheguru on this earth to come and save their own creation and help them break free from the 8.4 million lives and become one with the Nirguna form, the formless Nirankar Akal Purkh Vaheguru. And he came towards Dhan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji and begged for forgiveness. He realized that Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji must have been very, very spiritual. And like I've described, they are the embodiment of Vaheguru. And he apologized and asked Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji to break them from this sonamona. In other words, this place where they had become like stone and they couldn't move. And Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji blessed them and their arms came back down to normal and they dropped their stones. And Dastagir Pir then started asking questions and became involved in a discussion with Dhan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji. They asked that, first of all, they talked about the kirtan and they said that you were singing rag, you were playing music this morning. That is banned in an Islamic country. And we came to attack you. Why are you playing this rag? Why are you singing these hymns? This is supposed to be devil's work. And Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji explained to Dastagir Pir and his followers that if you, in a glass, pour poison, that glass or that cup can be made of glass, it can be made of clay, or it could be made of gold. The poison you put inside of the glass is what is going to give the effect. So you can drink that poison out of a clay cup, out of a glass, out of a steel cup, out of a cup made of gold. If there's poison in there, there is poison. And however, if you put amrit or blessed water in that cup, whatever type of cup it is, even if it's a clay cup, then it's like a gold cup because you are drinking amrit from there. And they continue to describe that actually this rag, these notes, these instruments that are being strung, and the notes that are being sung, they are actually like this cup. And it's what you pour into the cup that makes it either poison or amrita. For example, if you use those same instruments and that same rag to sing disrespectful songs that offend in terms of caste, colour, creed, that disrespect in terms of gender, that disrespect in any way, that follow the Panchajor and involve Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moha, Ahankar, then obviously it's like poison. But you can't blame the cup, you blame the poison, you blame what you are singing. However, if you sing the true Shabad, God's word, Turki Bani, Gurbani, that is going to break us free from the 8.4 million lives, then that is Amrit. So it's like drinking Amrit from a cup. So you can't blame the cup, you blame what's inside the cup. And Dastagir Peer understood this analogy of how Rag and Kirtan and instruments can help us connect to Vaheguru. Because to the ear, to the Chanchal mind, the mind which is forever thinking about different things and not being able to focus, Kirtan and singing through instruments helps bring that mind and pull the reins like you pull the reins of a horse, and it controls that mind and it helps you focus at the start of spirituality before you can then constantly meditate yourself deep within. He understood that. And then the next question he asked was about Patala Patal Lak. How can you say there are infinite worlds, infinite netherworlds? Our Prophet, he said, the Prophet Muhammad in the Quran, he said there was only 14. And then Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji replied, well, if that's all he could see, then that's why he said it. But there are infinite. God's creation is infinite, just as God is infinite himself. And then Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji offered this peer, this spiritual teacher, Dastagir, I will show you. And Dastagir, being quite old, said, I won't be able to last going through this infinite creation. I'm already old, I may die, but I trust my son. If you take my son, he is young, and you show him, when he comes back, when you bring him back, I will trust what he has shown, what he says to me. And then Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji took hold of Dastagir Peer's son, held him and asked him to close his eyes. And as he closed his eyes, then Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji took him on a trip through every single netherworld, through this infinite creation, and showed him absolutely everything. They went from world to world, seeing how God has created it, seeing how God has created this expansion, seeing who lives on these worlds, meeting these people. And in each place where they went, they saw that the people of those worlds, that the places they went, there are Gursikhs at those places, who sing those praises, who recite Sri Japji Sahib, who sing Kirtan. and to prove that he had gone somewhere in a bata, because wherever you sing the praises of Akal Purkh Vaheguru through the Shabad of Gurbani, at the end of those programs, Kadaha Prasadi Deg is given out to the Saad sangat after it has been eaten, after it has been blessed by Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji in the form of a Sri Sahib, in the form of a Karpan. And Dastagir Pir's son collected a little bit of prasad from every place they went when they met these Gursikhs in these different worlds, singing the praises, and collected this prasad, and then bhatta they brought back was then full. They only took a kinaka, a small amount. And then when he closed and opened his eyes for the last time, he was back in Baghdad in front of his father Dastagir Pir and all his followers. And Dastagir Pir said, "You haven't been anywhere. You close your eyes and you open them again." So to Dastagir Pir and the followers in Baghdad, it looked like that Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji had just made this youth blink. He hadn't gone anywhere. But the proof was the bata, the bowl of Kada Prasadi Deg. Because when he left, there was nothing within it. And when he arrived, it was full of Deg, because they took a small amount from every place they went. And then Dastagir Pir and his followers understood the teachings of Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji, that they were actually from Akal Purkh Vaheguru, and Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji was the embodiment and is the embodiment of Akal Purkh Vaheguru. They fell at their feet and they started following the teachings of the true Guru Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji. And so Guru Sahib Ji proved and showed that there are infinite worlds and nether worlds, infinite skies, because God has created, the infinite Lord himself has created his creation infinitely. Now a question which you may ask, that why did Guru Sahib Ji perform this miracle? The Guru Sahib Ji doesn't perform these miracles. We shouldn't perform miracles. And Dastagir Pir asked himself that you perform this miracle. And Guru Sahib Ji replied, "This is not a miracle, this is Akal Purkh Vaheguru, the true Lord God's Pana. It's his hukam, it's his command. When you threw those stones, I, Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji, shouted out the Jakara, and it was the protection of Vaheguru that made them freeze." And when Dastagir Pir's son blinked and went to see these netherworlds, it was the blessings of Akal Purkh Vaheguru. Even though Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji, the embodiment of Vaheguru themselves, are doing all of this, they stayed and remained humble and showed that it's through the blessing that this happens, that it wasn't a miracle, it wasn't anything magic to show you. A small teaching for us, that everything is with the kirpa, the blessings of Akal Purkh Vaheguru. So Guru Sahib Ji showed that the infinite Lord has created his creation infinitely. As there are infinite hundreds and thousands of worlds and netherworlds and hundreds and thousands of skies beyond them.
Odak pal thake ved kehn ek baat.
So Odak means end or the end, and Odak has come 2 times here. So the end and the end. Pal means to look for. Okay, and thake means to become tired. So if we take the translation of these first 4 words, even if you look for the end of these patals, these netherworlds, in the end, looking for them, you become tired. So the reason why they have Odak twice here, both mean end. The first one is end. If you're looking to the end of these netherworlds, finding the end of them, finding their limit, in the end, by looking for them, you become tired. And the Ved kehen ikavat. The Veds, the spiritual scriptures for the Hindu faith and the Eastern faiths, the Veds, kehen ikavat. They say one thing because they've tried to find the end and the extent. And they haven't found the extent. So even they at the end become tired, and even they would say that Akal Purkh Vaheguru is Beyant, is infinite. There is no end.
Sahas 18 kehn kateba asuru ek taat.
Sahas 18 Kehan Kateba. Now the Katebs, Kateba, we hear this word in Gurbani a lot. The Katebs are the scriptures, the Semitic scriptures. So they come from, so Quran is one of those, the Bible is one, the Torah is one, and the Jambur is one. Okay, there's 4 Katebs, 4 Semitic scriptures, and they come from the Western faiths, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and the old book, which they call it the old faith. Before those were created, the faith from that side of the world in Persia. And even they have tried to find the end. That even they ultimately say that Vaheguru Ji is beyond, is infinite, because they don't find an end to the infinite Lord, and they don't find an end to the infinite Lord's infinite creation. Asulu ek taat. Asulu ek. Asulu means asali. Asali gal. The truth is that there is ik, one infinite Lord Vaheguru, and the rest, taat, is his creation through Maya, Maya meaning illusion. So ultimately, there is only one God, nothing else, which is the truth. Everything else, including us and the way we live our lives in society, is all an illusion.
Lekha hoye ta likhiya, lekha hoye vinas.
So the Sayyid asked about the Lekha, about the writings, and Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji, Lekha hoye ta likhiya. You could only write if an account of how this was set up was written. Lekha hoye vinas. Vinas means to come to an end. So the writer writing all these accounts will come to an end. His writings will come to an end, and he still won't find an end to all of this.
Nanak vadda akhiya, ape jane aap.
Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji explains to the Siddhs, Vadda akhiya. God is the greatest of everything. They are infinite. Ape jane aap. They themselves only know how they created everything, the extent of their creation, because nobody else knows, because it's so big and infinite. The infinite Lord themselves, the great Lord themselves, will only know. And Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji explained to the Siddhs that although creation is infinite, only the infinite Lord knows the extent of his creation and understands that infinity. Now for a Gursikh, let's go through this body again and try to take a deeper message, as well as the message that Guru Sahib Ji has given the Siddhs.
Patala patal lakh, agasa agas.
So lakh can mean lakhan or lachan or description or characteristic. What is the characteristic of a Gursikh? Now patal, like I said, can mean layers of the earth. Okay, it could be the layers of these worlds. And the world is always below our feet. So the characteristic of a Gursikh is they always remain humble. They always remain the lowest of the low in their outlook, in their mind. But at the same time, another characteristic, agasa agas. The akash is in the sky, it's like an umbrella. It covers everything. And its light looks like, it looks as we look into the sky, that the sky goes on forever. And the Gursikh's characteristic is his pratap, is his aura. Just like the sky is the umbrella and the aura of this world continues to glow, a Gursikh will glow. So although they remain humble, through their actions they will glow, because they will always be following the teachings of Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji. Naam japna, vand ke shakna, kirt karni.
Odak bhal thake, ved kehna ek baat.
So even the Veds have tried to find Vaheguru, and we've been saying constantly that you find Vaheguru from within. You search within yourself by cleaning those karams, and as you clean those karams from your previous lives, you will find your soul which has been covered, because you can't see it because of these karams and because of the whims of the Panch, that we get led by the Panch Chor. So even if you look for God on your physical body, Odak, the first Odak, the second Odak, let's say your spiritual astral body, you still will become tired trying to find, and the Veds through their teachings have become tired tired trying to find Vaheguru. If you follow those teachings on the physical body or the astral body, you still won't find Vaheguru because the soul is not existing in there. They are within Maya. They are within the illusion.
ਸਹਸ 18 ਕਹਿਣ ਕਤੇਬਾ ਅਸਲੂ ਇਕ ਧਾਤ.
Even the Katevs, the Semitic scriptures, and their teachers and their guides, and you can take this for every scripture in the world that has come before Tan Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Even they cannot find where that God exists. Some say God exists in a stone. Some say God exists in a burial ground. Some say God exists in a certain direction. God exists in every single particle of His creation. And Asulu Ekatat, and everything else is the illusion in Maya, is Maya. So if we try to find God in our physical body, in our astral body, we won't find God there. Because that is part of this creation, which is Maya, which is illusion. We have to go further than that. And we can only go further than that if we walk on this path of spirituality, and only then we will find that one true Lord.
ਲੇਖਾ ਹੋਏ ਤਾਂ ਲਿਖੀਐ ਲੇਖਾ ਹੋਏ ਬਿਨਾ.
So how do we do that? How do we walk on that path? And we've been constantly learning about listening, believing, and then acting on the command. And then you become one with the Vaheguru. But actually, why would anybody want to do that? You would have to love Vaheguru to be able to do that. You don't listen to anybody you don't like. You don't believe in what they say if you don't like them. You definitely don't follow their command if you don't like them. And only if you develop love for the true Lord, the only way to develop love for Nirankar, the Nirgun, the formless Vaheguru, is through the seva of Sargun, Tan Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, and the respect of Sargun, Tan Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, and their Saad, sangat, Guru Khalsa Panth. And only then you develop that love, so you do begin to listen, you do begin to believe, and you do begin to follow. And how do you develop that love? Lekha hoy ta likhiya. Lekha here, first we can translate to being love. Hoy ta likhiya. And if you have that love and you develop that love, you write that within your heart. You write that within your heart, because then every breath, every second, you're constantly thinking about Vaheguru. Through Naam Japana, Vandake Shakana Kirt Karni. Remembering God with every breath. Vandake Shakana, sharing with others, and living and working an honest life. And then if that happens, Lekha Hoy Vinas, Lekha, the Lekha of coming back in these 8.4 million lives, Vinas will finish. Because you will break from these 8.4 million lives and become one with the Kalpurk Vaheguru.
ਨਾਨਕ ਵੱਡਾ ਆਖੀਐ ਆਪੇ ਜਾਣੈ ਆਪ.
Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji is telling us that those Gursikhs who follow that path of spirituality, they constantly say, Vadda Akhiye. They know that Akal Purkh Vaheguru is the greatest of everything, because they are the infinite Lord who created this creation, which is infinite itself. Ape Jane Aap. And what happens to them? They actually find Vaheguru. Ape, those Gursikhs themselves, Jane Aap, they understand themselves. Ape Jane Aap, they begin to understand themselves, or they have understood themselves. How do you understand yourself? You understand yourself by actually realizing what you are. We are that water outside of the ocean in a cup, in the cup of this body. And we have realized what's in the cup. The cup is the pure form, the Atma of Paramatma, of Akal Purkh Vaheguru. And they've realized themselves because they've become one with Vaheguru. They've found Vaheguru within every particle of themselves. They have become one with Vaheguru. And those Gursikhs are then praised to be Vadde themselves, to be great themselves. Just like Baba Deep Singh Ji, Baba Buddha Sahib Ji, Bhai Mani Singh Ji. The list is endless, because they have found Vaheguru within themselves. So that is a teaching for us to take away. I mean, each time when we go through this vichar, we realize the teachings that Guru Sahib Ji is having with the Siddhs, and we take a lot from that. And then there's also a spiritual message behind. So we can take 2 or 3 different teachings away every time we read Sri Japji Sahib, every time we contemplate on the teachings. If I've made any mistakes this week, I beg Guru Khalsa Sangat for forgiveness. You can bless me with Brahma Gyan. You can bless me that if I've made any mistakes, you can forgive me, so I can come back and deliver and give the correct meanings, the correct translation, so we can all learn, develop together, and become one with the Lord. I do ardas for all of us to become one with the Lord, because if we are all one with the Lord, we will have better lives in this form, as we will all have broken free from the 8.4 million lives that we've been going through for many, many years. Even though it doesn't seem like it, we have been. And we need to realize this is our chance to break free. And it's moreover our chance because we get blessed with the sangat of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji and their Gursikhs. And if we lose this opportunity, we may not get this chance again for many, many lives, for many, many years. And when I say many, many, not tens and twenties, I'm talking about hundreds and thousands and millions of years. Let's all pray to Akal Purkh Vaheguru that He blesses us all. Deho Sajjan Asisriya Jehovah Sahib Shomel
ਲੇਖਾ ਹੋਏ ਤਾਂ ਲਿਖੀਐ, ਲੇਖੈ ਹੋਏ ਵਿਨਾਸ਼, ਨਾਨਕ ਵੱਡਾ ਆਖੀਐ, ਆਪੇ ਜਾਣੈ ਆਪ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।